Captain James Walker stood at the observation deck of Orbital Station Alpha, his face showing no emotion as he watched another human warship being torn apart. The great cruiser Dauntless had once carried 5,000 crew members and enough firepower to level a small moon. Now it was just scrap metal, being cut into pieces by alien machines. "That's the 15th ship this week," said Admiral Hoffman, who stood next to Walker. The old man's voice cracked slightly. "By next month, our entire fleet will be gone." Walker nodded but said nothing. What was there to say? The Galactic Council had made their decision. Humans were too dangerous to have warships. End of story. The Galactic Unification Wars had ended 3 months ago. Humans had fought on the winning side, but their allies feared them almost as much as their enemies did. Human tactics had been too brutal, too unpredictable. Human captains took risks that no sane alien would consider. And human warships, though not the most advanced, had proven surprisingly effective at destroying much more sophisticated vessels. So when peace finally came, the first new law passed by the Galactic Council was the Human Containment Act. All human military ships were to be broken down or destroyed within 1 standard galactic year. Humans could still have trading vessels and passenger ships, but nothing with significant weapons or military-grade shields. "You should go home, James," said Admiral Hoffman. "There's nothing more we can do here." Walker shook his head. "I'll stay until the Valiant is gone. I served on her for 5 years. Hoffman put a hand on the younger man's shoulder. "I understand. I'll leave you to it, then." As the Admiral walked away, Walker's communication device buzzed. He looked at the screen and saw a message from an old friend. "Remember the ghost? It's still out there." Walker quickly deleted the message, but a small smile appeared on his face for the first time in months. The message was from Thomas Reed, his academy classmate and fellow captain. And the ghost could only refer to one thing: the experimental stealth destroyer Phantom. The Phantom had disappeared during the final battle at Proxima Centauri. Officially, it had been destroyed with all hands lost. But Walker had always had his doubts. The Phantom was designed to be invisible, to literally vanish from all sensors. What if Reed had activated the ship's ultimate stealth protocol? What if the Phantom was still out there, hidden among the stars? On the other side of the galaxy, a different scene was unfolding. The Krell Emperor, a massive creature with scale-covered skin and 6 yellow eyes, sat on a throne made from the bones of his enemies. "Are the reports confirmed?" the Emperor asked, his voice deep and rumbling. General Draz bowed low. "Yes, Your Supremacy. The humans are dismantling their fleet. The Council races believe they have removed the greatest threat to galactic peace." "Fools," the Emperor said with a sound that might have been laughter. "They have removed the only real threat to our plans. Have our border fleets begun moving into position?" "Yes, Your Supremacy. Within 6 cycles, we will be ready to strike the outer colonies. The Council races have grown soft during peacetime. Their ships are designed for shows of force, not actual combat." The Emperor's 6 eyes blinked in sequence. "And the humans? What about their remaining defenses?" "Their orbital platforms remain, but they are bound by treaty not to upgrade them. Their ground forces are still considerable, but without their fleet, they cannot project power beyond their home system." The Emperor rose from his throne, his massive form towering over the general. "Begin the operation. I want the first wave of conquests completed before the Council realizes what is happening." 50 years passed. Deep in the void between star systems, in a region of space rarely traveled, a small object floated in the darkness. From a distance, it looked like just another asteroid, a chunk of rock and metal drifting aimlessly. Even the most advanced sensors would detect nothing unusual about it. This was exactly as designed. Inside this asteroid was the human warship Phantom, its systems dormant, its crew frozen in cryostasis. The ship's AI, operating on minimal power, continuously monitored for a specific signal pattern that would never come. Or so it seemed until today. A weak transmission, bounced from relay to relay across dozens of systems, finally reached the dormant vessel. The signal pattern matched the emergency code programmed into the Phantom's core systems. Lights that had been dark for 50 years slowly came to life. Heat began to flow through metal that had been cold since before most currently living humans were born. And in the cryopods that lined the ship's crew quarters, the first signs of warming began to appear. In the command pod, Captain Thomas Reed's vital signs began to strengthen. His heartbeat accelerated from near-death slowness to something approaching normal human rhythm. Behind his closed eyelids, brain activity surged. The ship's AI, called Morgan, began the revival process with clinical efficiency. Medical nanobots flowed through the bloodstream of each crew member, repairing the minor cellular damage caused by long-term cryostasis. Nutrient solutions were infused directly into muscle tissue. Neural pathways were gently stimulated to prevent brain damage during awakening. 4 hours later, Captain Reed opened his eyes. "Morgan," he croaked, his voice rusty from 50 years of disuse. "Status report." The AI's calm voice filled the small pod. "Good morning, Captain. The date is April 15, 2487. The ship has received an emergency activation signal and has begun revival procedures for all crew members. Current ship status is nominal, with all stealth systems functioning at optimal levels." Reed struggled to process this information. 2487. We've been asleep for 50 years, 3 months, and 17 days, Captain. Reed closed his eyes again, trying to absorb this. Everything he knew, everyone he had left behind, all changed or gone. When the Phantom had initiated its deep space hibernation protocol during the final battle, he had expected to be retrieved within months, a year at most. The signal, Morgan, where did it come from? The signal originated from mining outpost Delta 9 in the Ta City system. It was transmitted on the old emergency frequency reserved for catastrophic threats to human space. Reed sat up slowly, fighting the dizziness that came with his first movement in half a century. "Show me what's happened while we were sleeping. Give me the summary version first." On the screen before him, images began to appear. News reports, data files, intercepted communications. Reed's expression grew darker with each passing minute. The Krell Empire, once just one power among many, had conquered nearly a third of known space. The Galactic Council races were in retreat, their territories shrinking year by year. And humanity, once feared for its military prowess, had been reduced to a client species with limited technology and travel rights. The latest reports showed Earth itself now under Krell protection, with massive alien platforms in orbit monitoring all traffic to and from the planet. "Wake the senior staff," Reed ordered, a new determination in his voice, "and prep the ship for full system activation." "Captain," Morgan responded, "I should inform you that revealing our existence would violate the Human Containment Act, which technically remains in effect." Reed's mouth formed a grim smile. "Morgan, I think that's the least of our concerns right now. The galaxy has changed, but it seems humanity needs the Phantom more than ever." As the last human warship hummed to life in the darkness, 50 years of enforced peace were about to come to an end. The crew of the Phantom gathered in the ship's main briefing room. Many still looked pale and unsteady after their long sleep. They sat in silence, trying to process the impossible truth. 50 years had passed while they slept. Captain Thomas Reed stood at the front of the room. Though his body felt weak after the long cryosleep, his eyes burned with determination. "I know this is hard to accept," he said, looking at the faces of his 120 crew members. "We went to sleep in one world and woke up in another. Everyone we knew back on Earth, our families, our friends, most of them are gone now." A young officer in the back raised her hand. "Sir, what about the war? Did we win?" Reed nodded. "Yes, Lieutenant Parker. The Alliance won the Galactic Unification Wars, but the peace that followed wasn't kind to humanity." He gestured to the ship's AI to display images on the main screen. "While we slept, the Galactic Council enforced the Human Containment Act. All human warships were destroyed or broken down for parts, all except us. The crew looked at each other. They were now relics of a forbidden past. Lieutenant Anna Wilson, Reed's second-in-command, stood up. "The situation is worse than just that," she said. "Morgan has been collecting data since we woke up. The Krell Empire has been conquering council worlds for the past 40 years. Reed nodded for her to continue. "The council races didn't maintain strong militaries after the war. Without human warships to worry about, they thought peace would last. They were wrong." Wilson's voice was bitter. "The Krell started with small border attacks. When nobody stopped them, they got bolder. Now they control a third of known space." "And Earth?" asked Chief Engineer Laura Miller. "What about our home?" Reed's face darkened. "Earth fell 5 years ago. The Krell call it a protected world now. There are alien stations in orbit watching everything. Humans can't build advanced technology or leave the system without special permission." A heavy silence fell over the room. Many crew members looked down at their hands or closed their eyes. "So what do we do now, Captain?" asked Weapons Officer John Peters. "We're just one ship. There are 120 of us against an empire." Reed squared his shoulders. "First, we need to know more. Morgan's information comes from old broadcasts and weak signals. We need to see the situation with our own eyes." He turned to the main screen and brought up a star map. "We're going to Earth." 2 weeks later, the Phantom approached the Sol system. The ship's stealth systems were fully active, making it invisible to all known detection methods. On the bridge, Captain Reed and his officers watched the sensor displays with growing concern. 6 Krell battlecruisers in orbit around Earth, muttered Peters from the weapons station. "Each one bigger than anything humanity ever built. And those orbital platforms, they're massive." Reed studied the sensor data. Morgan analyzed the Krell defensive systems. "Could they detect us?" The AI's calm voice responded, "Negative, Captain. Their sensor technology, while advanced, operates on principles similar to what we were designed to counter. Our stealth systems remain effective." Reed nodded. "Good. Now let's see what's happening on the ground." The Phantom slipped past the Krell warships and took up position in high Earth orbit. From there, they began intercepting communications and gathering information. The crew worked in shifts, piecing together a picture of Earth under Krell rule. The news wasn't good. "They're calling it benevolent supervision," said Communications Officer David Wright with disgust. "Humans can't build computers beyond certain specifications, can't develop new energy technology, can't even leave the planet without Krell approval." Lieutenant Wilson pointed to images on her screen. "Look at these patrol patterns. The Krell monitor everything, especially in major cities, but there are gaps in their coverage in remote areas." Reed studied the data. "We need someone on the ground, someone who can make contact with any resistance that might exist." "I'll go, sir," Wilson volunteered immediately. Reed nodded. "And I'll go with you. Peters, you'll be in command while we're away." Peters looked surprised. "Sir, with respect, you're the captain. You shouldn't risk yourself." Reed smiled grimly. "This is my home, John. Our home. I need to see it with my own eyes, not just through sensors and cameras." 3 days later, Reed and Wilson landed in a small clearing in what used to be the Rocky Mountain National Park. They had used one of the Phantom's stealth shuttles for the trip. They wore simple clothes that Morgan had fabricated based on current Earth fashion. Nothing too fancy, nothing that would draw attention. "Remember," Reed said as they hiked toward the nearest town, "we're traders from the outer colonies. We have proper Krell travel permits, but we don't want to use them unless we have to." Wilson nodded. "Our goal is to find Marcus Green. According to the communications we intercepted, he runs a salvage business as a cover for resistance activities. The town, once known as Estes Park, had changed in the 50 years since Reed had last seen it. New buildings with alien architectural styles stood alongside the old human structures. Krell patrol vehicles moved through the streets, their hovering forms casting shadows on the pedestrians below. Reed felt a chill as he saw humans step aside to let the Krell pass, their eyes downcast, their postures submissive. "This isn't right," he whispered. "This isn't who we are." They found Green's salvage on the edge of town. It was a large compound surrounded by a high fence. Piles of scrap metal and old machinery filled the yard. A sign at the gate announced, "Licensed by the Protectorate for Level 2 Technology Reclamation." A gruff-looking man in his 50s approached them as they entered the yard. "We're closed," he said shortly. "Come back tomorrow." "We're looking for Marcus Green," Reed said quietly. "We have something he might want to salvage. Something from the old days." The man's eyes narrowed. "Don't know what you're talking about." Wilson stepped closer. "We came a long way, farther than you might think possible." The man studied them for a long moment. Then he spoke into a small device on his wrist. "Lock the gate. Scan for bugs." A younger man appeared and ran a device over Reed and Wilson, checking for listening devices. When he nodded that they were clean, the older man's demeanor changed. "I'm Green," he said. "Follow me. And for your sake and mine, I hope you're not wasting my time." He led them into a workshop and closed the door behind them. Then he turned and crossed his arms. "Now," said Green, "who are you really, and what's this about the old days?" Reed took a deep breath. "My name is Captain Thomas Reed of the UES Phantom. This is my second-in-command, Lieutenant Anna Wilson." Green's eyes widened. "The Phantom. That ship was lost 50 years ago in the war." "Not lost," Reed said. "Hidden. And now we're back, because someone sent a distress signal that woke us up." Green's face showed disbelief, then cautious hope. "If you're really who you say you are, then you should know the Phantom's designation code." Reed smiled. "UES P-117, Experimental Stealth Destroyer, launched 2436 under Project Wraith." Green's tough exterior cracked. His eyes filled with tears. "My grandfather served in the fleet," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "He told me stories about ships like yours. I never thought I'd see the day." He stopped, overcome. After a moment, he composed himself. "Captain Reed, you have no idea how much Earth needs you right now. The Krell think they've broken us. They think humans will never fight back." He grinned suddenly, a fierce expression that reminded Reed of the human spirit that the Krell had tried to suppress. "They're about to learn they're wrong. Very wrong." Marcus Green led Captain Reed and Lieutenant Wilson through a hidden door at the back of his workshop. They descended a long staircase that took them deep underground. The walls changed from concrete to natural rock as they went deeper. "We had to go down far enough to avoid Krell scanners," Green explained. "They can detect electronic signals through about 50 feet of Earth, but not through 200. At the bottom of the stairs, they entered a large cave that had been converted into a command center. About 30 people worked at various stations, monitoring communications and studying maps. They all stopped and stared when Green entered with the strangers. "Everyone," Green announced, "these are Captain Reed and Lieutenant Wilson. They're from the Phantom." Silence fell over the room. Then a woman stepped forward. "The Phantom was destroyed 50 years ago," she said coldly. "Who are they really, Marcus?" Green smiled. "Prove it to them, Captain." Reed reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. He activated it, and a holographic display appeared, showing the Phantom in orbit around Earth. The image was date-stamped with today's date. "That's impossible," someone whispered. "The Phantom was never destroyed," Reed explained. "We activated our emergency stealth protocol during the final battle. The ship went into hibernation mode with the crew in cryosleep. We were awakened by a distress signal 2 weeks ago." The woman who had questioned them approached the hologram. "I'm Diane Miller, second in command here. If you're really from the Phantom, then you're violating the Human Containment Act." Reed nodded. "I know. But it seems that law is the least of humanity's problems right now. Green gestured for everyone to sit at a large table in the center of the room. Captain Reed needs to know everything about our situation. The real situation, not what the Krell tell everyone. For the next 2 hours, Reed and Wilson listened as the Resistance members explained how Earth had fallen. The Krell had first approached as allies, offering technology and protection. Then, slowly, they had taken control of orbital stations and key infrastructure. By the time humans realized what was happening, it was too late. The worst part, said a young man named Alex, is that many humans cooperate with them. The Krell reward those who help maintain their control. What about the other council races? Wilson asked. Surely they don't approve of this. Diane laughed bitterly. The council is a joke now. The Krell have conquered half their worlds. The rest are too afraid to fight back. Reed studied the maps they showed him. The Krell Empire had expanded rapidly, taking advantage of the peace that followed the Galactic Unification Wars. Without human warships to worry about, the other races had grown complacent. And now you have a working warship, Green said, his eyes gleaming. The last human warship in existence. Do you know what that means, Captain? Reed nodded slowly. It means we could fight back. Not just fight back, Green insisted. The Phantom was the most advanced ship in the human fleet. With its stealth technology, you could strike anywhere and disappear before the Krell could respond. Reed exchanged looks with Wilson. They both understood what Green was suggesting. We're one ship with a crew of 120, Reed cautioned. The Krell have thousands of warships. But none with your capabilities, Green argued. And you wouldn't be fighting alone. There are resistance movements on every planet the Krell have taken. They just need hope. They need to know it's possible to win. Diane pulled up new images on a display. These are the Krell's main supply routes. Their patrol schedules. Their command centers. We've been gathering intelligence for years, waiting for an opportunity to use it. Reed felt the weight of the decision before him. The Phantom and her crew had awoken to a galaxy very different from the one they had left. If they revealed themselves, they would be breaking the law that humanity had agreed to follow. But if they did nothing, the Krell would continue their domination. I need to discuss this with my crew, Reed said finally. This isn't just my decision to make. Green nodded. Of course. But don't take too long, Captain. The Krell grow stronger every day. Back on the Phantom, Reed called a meeting of all senior officers. He explained everything he had learned on Earth and the choice they now faced. The way I see it, we have 3 options, Reed said. First, we could go back into hibernation and hope that someday things get better. Second, we could surrender the ship to Earth authorities, admit we violated the Human Containment Act, and face the consequences. Or third, we could join the resistance and fight the Krell. John Peters, the weapons officer, spoke first. Sir, with all due respect, the first 2 options are cowardly. We're military officers. Our duty is to protect humanity. Laura Miller, the chief engineer, shook her head. It's not that simple, John. The Human Containment Act was signed by Earth's government. If we fight, we're not just fighting the Krell. We're going against our own people's agreement. An agreement made under false pretenses, countered Dr. Robert Hayes, the ship's medical officer. The council races feared us, so they disarmed us. And look what happened. They couldn't defend themselves when the Krell came. The debate continued, with passionate arguments on all sides. Some crew members feared starting a war that would bring more suffering to Earth. Others insisted they had a duty to fight oppression, no matter the cost. As Reed listened, a message alert flashed on his screen. It was from the ship's sensors. Morgan, what is it? He asked. The AI's voice was calm as always. Captain, I have detected unusual activity in Earth orbit. A Krell patrol ship is scanning the area where our shuttle landed. They appear to be searching for something. Reed's face hardened. They're looking for us. Someone must have reported seeing strangers in town. If they find the shuttle, Wilson began. They won't, Reed assured her. Its stealth systems are active. But this means our time for debate is running out. The Krell are already suspicious. At that moment, another alert sounded. This one came from Green's underground base. Captain Reed. Green's voice came through, tight with urgency. The Krell have started a house-to-house search in town. They're looking for unauthorized visitors. One of their officers, someone named Tark, seems particularly determined to find you. Reed looked around the table at his officers. It seems the decision might be made for us. If the Krell discover who we are, they'll throw everything they have at finding the Phantom. Then we fight, said Peters firmly. Laura Miller sighed. Maybe there's a middle path. We don't have to start an all-out war. We could help the Resistance in small ways, use our technology to give them an edge. Reed nodded slowly, considering. The Phantom was designed to be a ghost. Perhaps that's what we should be. A ghost that haunts the Krell, striking where they're vulnerable and vanishing before they can respond. He looked at each of his officers in turn. Whatever we decide, we need to decide now. Either way, we can't just sit in orbit and watch. Wilson straightened in her chair. Sir, I think I speak for everyone when I say we didn't join Starfleet to hide. We joined to protect humanity, even if it means breaking a law that should never have existed. One by one, the officers nodded their agreement. Reed felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Then it's decided. The Phantom will fight. Not just for humans, but for all the races oppressed by the Krell. Starting now, the Phantom moved silently through space, its advanced stealth systems making it invisible to Krell sensors. Captain Reed stood on the bridge, watching the main screen as they approached their first target. A Krell supply depot near Jupiter's moon Callisto. All systems ready, Captain, reported Lieutenant Wilson from her station. Weapons are charged but cold. No heat signature to detect. Reed nodded. Morgan, final scan of the target. The ice calm voice filled the bridge. Depot contains 3 Krell supply ships and minimal defense systems. Crew complement of 28 Krell personnel. No civilian presence detected. Perfect, Reed said. We're not here to kill if we can avoid it. We want the supplies, not revenge. The plan was simple but daring. The Resistance needed food, medicine, and technology. The Krell kept tight control over such supplies on Earth, but their space depots were less heavily guarded. No one expected attacks in space, since no human ships had military capabilities anymore. Move us into position, Reed ordered. Prepare boarding teams. The Phantom glided closer to the depot, perfectly silent and invisible. When they were just 500 meters away, Reed gave the order. Now. Suddenly, the Phantom dropped its stealth field. The Krell on the depot barely had time to register alarm before the human warship fired precision shots that disabled the depot's communication array and defensive weapons. At the same time, 3 shuttles launched from the Phantom's bay, carrying armed boarding teams. Sir, we're picking up emergency signals from the depot, reported Communications Officer Wright. They're using short-range transmitters. Reed smiled grimly. That's fine. By the time any Krell ships respond, we'll be long gone. The boarding teams, led by Weapons Officer Peters, moved quickly through the depot. They stunned the Krell guards and began loading supplies into the shuttles. Chief Engineer Miller directed the operation from the lead shuttle, making sure they took the most valuable and needed items. Captain, Miller's voice came through the comm. We found something interesting. The Krell have prototype stealth technology here. Not as advanced as ours, but still valuable. Take it, Reed ordered, and download any data you can from their systems. 20 minutes later, the shuttles returned to the Phantom. As soon as they were secured, the ship reactivated its stealth systems and moved away from the depot at maximum speed. Mission successful, Captain, Peters reported, entering the bridge. No casualties on either side. We got enough supplies to help the Resistance for months, plus valuable Krell technology. Reed nodded with satisfaction. Well done, everyone. Set course for the rendezvous point. 2 days later, The Phantom met with a fleet of small civilian ships at a hidden location in the asteroid belt. These were resistance vessels disguised as mining ships. Green personally oversaw the transfer of supplies. When he saw the Krell technology they had captured, his eyes widened. "This is incredible," he said. "With this, we can enhance our own ship's stealth capabilities. Not to your level, but enough to evade standard Krell patrols." "That's the idea," Reed said. "We can't be everywhere at once. The resistance needs to be able to move freely." Green clasped Reed's shoulder. "This is just the beginning, Captain. Word of this raid is already spreading. People who had given up hope are starting to believe again." But not everyone was pleased with the Phantom's actions. During the supply transfer, Reed received a message from an unexpected source. "The remnants of the Galactic Council. Captain Reed." The message began, "Your ship is in violation of the Human Containment Act. While we understand your desire to resist Krell occupation, your actions risk escalating the conflict. The Council requests that you surrender your vessel immediately." Reed showed the message to Green, who laughed harshly. "The Council? They're hiding in their last few safe systems while the Krell conquer everyone else. Don't listen to them." Reed wasn't so sure. The Council races are suffering too. And they have a point. One ship attacking Krell outposts might provoke harsher crackdowns. Wilson, who had been listening, spoke up. "Sir, I think we need to show them that we're not just fighting for humans. This is about freedom for all races." Reed considered this. "You're right. Morgan, prepare a response to the Council. Tell them the Phantom will continue operations against Krell targets, but we invite Council representatives to meet with us. We should be allies, not enemies." Over the next month, the Phantom conducted a series of raids on Krell targets. They disabled patrol ships, freed prisoners from labor camps, and stolen valuable intelligence. After each mission, they shared supplies and information with resistance groups from many different species, not just humans. Their success did not go unnoticed. The Krell response grew increasingly harsh. They increased patrols in sectors where the Phantom had been spotted. They punished civilian populations after attacks, hoping to turn public opinion against the mysterious raiders. On the bridge of the Phantom, Reed watched a news broadcast from a Krell-controlled station. It showed the aftermath of their latest mission, a prison break on a moon of Saturn where political prisoners had been held. "The terrorists struck again today," the Krell announcer said. "In response, security measures will be increased in all human settlements. Curfews will be extended, and travel between cities will require additional permits." Reed switched off the screen, his face troubled. "They're punishing innocent people for our actions." "That's how tyrants work," Wilson said. "They use fear to control people, but it won't work forever. Look." She showed him messages from resistance cells across the solar system. Despite the Krell crackdowns, more people were joining the fight every day. The Phantom's raids had given them hope. "We need to be smarter about this," Reed said after a moment of thought. "If direct attacks lead to civilian suffering, we need a new approach." He called a meeting of his senior officers and explained his new plan. "From now on, we focus on two things. First, we use the Phantom's fabrication systems to manufacture stealth communication devices and small weapons that can be distributed to resistance cells." Miller nodded enthusiastically. "I've been working on designs that can be easily produced using our systems." Second, Reed continued, "we start sharing our stealth technology with other ships. Not everything. We can't risk the Krell capturing our most advanced systems, but enough to create a small fleet that can move undetected." "A shadow fleet," Peters said, liking the idea. "Exactly. One ship can be hunted down eventually, but dozens of ships appearing and disappearing across the galaxy. The Krell won't know how to respond." The officers agreed to the new strategy. As they filed out to begin work, Reed received another message. This one was from a council representative named Lara Jones. "Captain Reed, the council has considered your invitation. I will meet with you at coordinates of your choosing to discuss potential cooperation against the Krell threat. Perhaps it is time to reconsider old restrictions in light of new dangers." Reed smiled. It was a start. But as he prepared a response, Morgan interrupted with an urgent alert. "Captain, long-range sensors have detected an unusual Krell vessel entering the Sol system. It appears to be a specialized hunter-killer ship designed to track stealth vessels." Reed's smile faded. "Show me." The screen displayed a sleek, predatory-looking ship, unlike any Krell vessel they had seen before. Its hull was covered with advanced sensor arrays. "The ship is commanded by Admiral Vex," Morgan reported. "According to Krell Communications, he is their most decorated hunter. He has been assigned specifically to track down and destroy the Phantom." Reed studied the image of the enemy ship. "So the real game begins. Let's see how good this Admiral Vex really is." Admiral Vex stood on the bridge of his ship, the Hunter's Claw. His tall, scaled body towered over the Krell officers who worked at their stations. His yellow eyes narrowed as he studied the star map of the Sol system. "Where are you hiding, little ghost ship?" he muttered. For 3 weeks, Vex had been hunting the Phantom. The human warship had become more than just an enemy vessel. It had become a symbol of resistance. Stories of its raids spread through occupied worlds, giving hope to the conquered and causing fear among Krell commanders. The Emperor himself had given Vex this mission: find and destroy the last human warship, restore fear and order to the Empire. "Admiral," reported his second-in-command, "our sensors have detected unusual energy readings near the human moon. It could be nothing, but plot a course immediately," Vex ordered, "and send word to all ships in the sector. If it's the Phantom, I want it surrounded." On the Phantom, Captain Reed met with Laura Jones, the representative from the Galactic Council. She was a tall, elegant alien with blue skin and silver eyes, a member of the Altarian species. "The Council has reviewed your activities, Captain," Jones said. "While we still have concerns about your violation of the Human Containment Act, we cannot deny your effectiveness against the Krell." Reed nodded. "The act was a mistake, Ambassador Jones. If humans had kept their fleet, perhaps the Krell would never have been so bold in their conquests." "Perhaps," Jones agreed. "What's done is done. The question now is, what happens next?" "I have a proposal," Reed said. He activated a holographic display showing technical specifications for stealth technology. "The Phantom is just one ship, but if the Council races still have vessels hidden away, we could retrofit them with our stealth systems, create a fleet that could actually challenge the Krell." Jones studied the display. "This is advanced technology. In return, what would you want from the Council?" "A full pardon for violating the Human Containment Act, and the act itself repealed. Humanity deserves the right to defend itself, just like any other species." Jones was about to respond when alarms blared throughout the ship. "Captain," Wilson's voice came over the comm. "Multiple Krell warships converging on our position. They've somehow detected us." Reed turned to Jones. "It seems our meeting will have to be cut short, Ambassador. Morgan, escort Ambassador Jones to her ship immediately." As Jones left, Reed rushed to the bridge. The main screen showed a frightening sight: 6 Krell warships approaching their position, led by a sleek vessel unlike any they had seen before. "That's Admiral Vex's ship," Peters said grimly. "The Hunter's Claw. It must have some kind of advanced detection system." "How did they find us?" Reed demanded. Morgan's voice was calm as always. "Analysis suggests they are tracking the unique radiation signature from our quantum engines. Our stealth systems hide conventional emissions, but not this specific pattern." Reed made a quick decision. "Set course away from Earth. Maximum speed. We need to draw them away from the resistance bases." The Phantom accelerated, breaking orbit from the moon where they had been hiding. The Krell ships immediately gave chase. "They're gaining on us, sir," reported the helmsman. "The Hunter's Claw is faster than we expected." Reed studied the tactical display. "Prepare all weapons. If we have to fight, We'll make it count. The first shots came from the Hunter's Claw, energy beams that danced across the Phantom's shields. Shields at 80%, Morgan reported. Direct hit would have been much worse without them. Reed ordered evasive maneuvers as the Phantom returned fire. Their weapons struck two of the Krell ships, causing significant damage to one. But they were outnumbered, and Vex was a skilled tactician. Over the next hour, the battle raged through the outer solar system. The Phantom managed to destroy one Krell vessel and damage two others, but their own situation grew increasingly desperate. Shields at 30%, Morgan reported after a particularly heavy barrage. Hull breaches on decks 3 and 4. Emergency bulkheads holding. In the medical bay, Dr. Hayes and his team worked frantically to treat injured crew members. Engineering teams led by Miller fought to keep damaged systems online. Reed knew they couldn't keep fighting much longer. Morgan, what's our status on the emergency hyperspace drive? Charged and ready, Captain. But I must warn you, the damage to our navigation systems means we cannot predict our exact destination. Reed made the hardest decision of his career. All hands, prepare for emergency hyperspace jump. Engineering, reroute all power to the drive. As the Krell ships closed in for the kill, the Phantom disappeared in a flash of light, jumping to hyperspace. When they emerged from hyperspace, the Phantom was badly damaged. Half their systems were offline, and they had lost 17 crew members in the battle. Where are we, Morgan? Reed asked, looking at the unfamiliar star pattern on the view screen. Approximately 200 light-years from Earth, the AI reported, near the Rigel system. Reed's eyes widened. Rigel? That's the heart of Krell territory. Correct, Captain. Specifically, we are within sensor range of the Krell Central Command Node. It is their primary military coordination facility for this quadrant of the galaxy. The bridge crew fell silent as they realized the implications. By accident, they had jumped right into the center of enemy territory, but they had also found the Krell's most important military installation. Show me, Reed ordered. The screen displayed a massive space station orbiting Rigel IV. It was heavily defended, surrounded by dozens of Krell warships. According to Krell, communications were intercepting. Wilson reported that station coordinates all Krell military operations in this sector. If it were disabled, their forces would be in chaos, Reed finished. He looked around at his exhausted, injured crew. But we're in no shape for another fight. Miller spoke up from engineering. Sir, we still have the stealth drive. It's damaged but functional. And we have enough weapons for one more attack run. Reed considered their options. They could try to repair the ship and make another jump, hoping to escape Krell territory. Or they could do something no one would expect. Attack the very heart of the Krell military machine. Morgan, can you access the Krell battle network from here? Reed asked. Attempting now, Captain. After a moment, the AI continued. I have limited access. Enough to send false orders, but not to take full control. A plan began to form in Reed's mind. A desperate, audacious plan. Listen carefully, everyone, he said to his crew. I believe we can strike a blow that might turn the tide of this war. But I won't lie to you. It's likely to be a one-way trip. He explained his plan. The Phantom would approach the command station using what remained of their stealth capabilities. Reed would offer himself as a distraction by taking the shuttle directly to the station, supposedly to surrender. Meanwhile, Wilson would leave a small team to infiltrate the station's core and plant explosives at critical junctions. At the same time, Morgan would use their access to the Krell network to send false orders to the defending ships, creating confusion. It's a suicide mission, Peters said bluntly. Reed nodded. For those who go to the station, yes, but not necessarily for the ship. Once the charges are set, the Phantom can use the last of its power to make one more jump, taking as many of you as possible to safety. The crew was silent for a long moment. Then Wilson stood. I volunteer to lead the boarding party. One by one, others volunteered as well. They were the last crew of the last human warship. They would make their final stand count. As they prepared for the mission, Reed recorded a message to be broadcast across all frequencies. This is Captain Thomas Reed of the UES Phantom. To all those who live under Krell oppression, I say this: no empire lasts forever. No prohibition can erase the human spirit. We fight not for conquest, but for freedom, for ourselves, and for all sentient beings. Today, we strike at the heart of tyranny. Tomorrow, you will build a better galaxy from the ashes of the old one. The Phantom moved silently toward its final battle, carrying the hopes of countless worlds on its damaged hull. And in the stars above Rigel, the last human warship prepared to light a fire that would never be extinguished.